Jake, one that we talked a little bit last week, but now I really want to hammer home here. Florida at South Carolina. And my question for you here, I want to get your take on this statement. Saturday's game in Columbia versus Florida, who the Gamecocks coming off a bye week, and Florida missing its starting center. It's the biggest game in the Shane Beamer era at South Carolina. True or false?
False. Listen, I know fan short for fanatical, and I know it hasn't gone exactly this year like South. And Shane was right in his press conference. Okay, they have overachieved early. You're like, man, we won 7. Oh man, we won 8. Well, why are we not winning 9 or 10? Why are we not winning 11 in year 3? Well, if you haven't noticed, South Carolina's not very good up front on either side of the ball, and that's the saddest part for Spencer Rattler, because if they were and they had some semblance of a run game, and if they could be heavy in the box and limit other teams, South Carolina could be really dangerous this year. Really, I mean, we saw what they did with what they had in the first half against Georgia, but they don't. That doesn't mean that Shane Beamer's a bad coach. You would like to have the offensive line and defensive line figured out by year 3, but if you can't see the trajectory of this South Carolina team when you look at recruiting, when you look at what they're bringing in on the edge, I think the Lenore Sellers kid has a chance to be special as well at quarterback. We'll see down the road. But Shane Beamer has this program going in the right direction. And I will warn South Carolina fans about this. Okay. Do not, with Shane Beamer, make it to a point where it's toxic, because I do think, and we can talk about 6-year plan or the 5-year plan, like off Big Daddy with the guy working at Hooters, whatever. They're going to pop that big year. If it's not next year, it'll be the year after that one. So you don't want to get in this cycle of, hey, overachieving for 2 years, you have a bad year, oh, we're going to fire you, because that's how you get in that washing machine of having to replace the coach every 3 to 4 years and go through what Tennessee had to go through. So I understand being critical. South Carolina should be good up front, but you got to be able to see the beach through the forest on this one, man. And when it comes down to Florida, same thing with Billy Napier. I mean, you got to be patient. This year's schedule and next year's schedule is like hitting the knees with an aluminum bat when you walk in the house. It's it's tough, but patience isn't just for doctors and therapists. I know that's hard for fans to hear. All right. But Shane Beamer, the trajectory, you got to like it. I'm going to sniffle now.
Yeah, no doubt. Listen, I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned the struggles along the offensive front and the defensive front. So South Carolina against North Carolina allowed 168 yards rushing, against Georgia 190 yards rushing, and against Tennessee 238 yards rushing. We know that Florida wants to run the football with Napier. They want to get you kind of going east and west, stretch those gaps, make you lose gap integrity, and then gash you with Etienne and Montrell Johnson. But my question to you, and you see it in the graphic, can the Gators run on the road? 31 rushing yards against Utah earlier this year, and then they go to Kentucky and have 69 total yards rushing. They ran through Tennessee like a car wash on a hot summer day down there in the swamp, but they can't get it done on the road. Do you think Billy Napier 1-7 on the road in his career at Florida, away from the swamp? Do you think they'll be able to run the ball against South Carolina and Columbia?
Well, look, I'm a firm believer in when you show me who you are enough times, I got to believe you. And your center's out, who I believe was out against Utah. Now, they ran a little bit too much east and west against Utah. You saw them get more north and south against Tennessee, but they can't figure it out on the road. And Kentucky's a lot better defense than South Carolina. So if there's any defense that you should be able to run on the road, it should be South Carolina. But I've coached at Williams-Brice. I understand what that place is like, and it's amazing how it can make players a little bit better than what they typically are when you go play at that place. So it's the matchup it should be what Florida does best against what South Carolina does worst. But when you look at those road splits, how can you sit here and say Florida does that the best when they're on the road? They just haven't performed yet. So I think South Carolina punches above their weight in this game. I think they shut down the run enough. Not that they're not going to get popped a couple times. Florida will have a little bit of success, but I don't think it'll be to the point where Graham Mertz is able to sit back there and just find guys and bide time and find guys off play action and things like that. I like South Carolina in this game. It's actually one of my locks of the week at -2.5.
Jake going with Cocktober over there. He thinks it's time. It's time for
you love to see it. Nothing like a good Cocktober.